Do you know what it means to get $5 as an inheritance? After 3 years of marriage, after watching your husband wither in pain for months, after sacrificing your career, your dreams, your entire life to care for someone you love, Vera Townsend knew exactly what it meant as the crisp bill was tossed contemptuously across the mahogany table. The Wayne family watched with gleaming smiles as it landed before her, their laughter like broken glass in the silence that followed. $1 for each month we had to tolerate your presence in our son's life, Eleanor Wayne explained, pearls gleaming at her throat as she leaned forward. Consider it generous, all things considered. Vera's fingertips brushed the $5 bill, her black widow's veil unable to hide the humiliation burning across her face. Thomas had been buried exactly 8 days ago, the soil on his grave not yet settled. Richard Wayne's voice cut through the room like a blade. My son's unfortunate. Fascination with you is clearly a symptom of his declining mental state. We've arranged for your belongings to be removed from the estate by sunset. This isn't what Thomas wanted, Vera said, her Russian accent thickening with emotion, though her posture remained elegant, unyielding. Vincent Wayne, Thomas's older brother, circled behind her chair, his cologne suffocating. What my brother wanted died with him, along with whatever delusions you had about becoming a permanent fixture in this family. The family lawyer shifted uncomfortably, his eyes fixed on the paperwork before him. He'd known. They'd all known what would happen the moment Thomas drew his final breath. The apartment, Vera began, is a Wayne property, Eleanor cut in. And as you've just been officially compensated for your companionship, your occupation of any Wayne holdings is terminated, effective immediately. $5. For the 3 years she'd spent loving a man they'd written off. For the nights holding Thomas through pain no medication could touch. For the dignity she'd helped him maintain as his body betrayed him. For the promises whispered between them that now hung, suspended in a room filled with people who'd visited his sickbed less than a dozen times. Vera folded the bill precisely, tucking it into her black clutch with the deliberate care of someone handling evidence. Hello, my lovelies at Ducal Tales. I hope you're comfortable wherever you're watching from today. Have you subscribed to join our Ducal family yet? We have so many more stories of betrayal and justice coming your way. The lawyer's phone buzzed. His eyes widened as he scanned the message before looking up at Richard. Sir, there's been activity at Zurich National. Richard's face hardened to granite. What kind of activity? Someone accessed the private vault. 10 minutes ago. Eleanor's teacup clattered against its saucer. That's impossible. Vera felt the atmosphere shift like a sudden drop in barometric pressure. Something dangerous flickered across Richard's face as his gaze locked onto her. What did Thomas tell you before he died? He demanded, closing the distance between them with surprising speed for a man his age. But Vera had already risen, her widow's black dress falling in perfect pleats around her as she moved toward the door. She turned one last time, her face composed, but her eyes burning. He told me to watch for the vultures, she said softly. I just didn't expect them to arrive before his body was cold. As the heavy double doors closed behind her, Vera felt the weight of what awaited her. In her pocket lay a small brass key, worn smooth from years of Thomas's touch. A key to what? She wasn't entirely sure. But whatever Thomas had hidden away was enough to make the mighty Wayne family pale at its mere mention. What terrible secrets had her husband been protecting her from? And now that he was gone, would they become her salvation or her death sentence? 3 hours after the will reading, Elena sat cross-legged on the bare floor of what had been their apartment above Thomas's favorite bookshop in the city. The Wayne family hadn't wasted time. Already, the walls were stripped of photos, furniture removed, leaving only dust outlines where their life together had stood. They permitted her one suitcase for personal effects, as if 3 years could be compressed into a single bag. The scent of leather-bound books still lingered in the air, a comforting constant from the shop below. She ran her fingers along the worn floorboards, feeling for the secret compartment Thomas had shown her months ago. For emergencies only, he'd whispered, his eyes solemn. Inside lay emergency cash and duplicate keys, practical preparations she'd once thought excessive. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to remember Thomas as he'd been when they first met. Not the wheelchair-bound heir to the Wayne fortune, but the man with laughing eyes who'd spilled coffee on her manuscript in a cafe 3 springs ago. "I've just destroyed the next great American novel, haven't I?" he'd said, horrified yet smiling. "Russian novel," she'd corrected, her accent thicker then. And it was terrible anyway. He'd insisted on buying her dinner to apologize. By dessert, she'd forgotten about the manuscript entirely. The Wayne family had disliked her immediately. The unknown Russian literature professor with no pedigree, no connections. When Thomas's condition worsened 6 months into their relationship, Eleanor Wayne had cornered Elena in the hospital hallway, the antiseptic smell mixing with her expensive perfume. "Name your price," she'd said coldly. "Whatever you're after, we'll double it if you disappear now, before this embarrassment goes any further." But there had been no price. Only Thomas, brilliant and fading, whose mind remained sharp as his body betrayed him. Only the quiet nights reading Russian poetry together, his head in her lap. Only the whispered conversations about justice and legacy that stopped whenever family entered the room. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. "Miss, it's Harriet." Elena opened the door to find Thomas's former nurse, a sturdy woman with kind eyes and practical hands that had tended to him with dignity during his final months. "They fired me this morning," Harriet Parker said without preamble. "Apparently, I showed inappropriate loyalty to you during Mr. Wayne's illness." "I'm sorry," Elena said, genuine remorse coloring her voice. "Thomas valued you greatly." Harriet glanced nervously down the hallway before slipping inside. "I don't have much time. They got people watching the building." She pressed a small leather journal into Elena's hands. "He asked me to give you this when the time came." Elena's fingers trembled as she accepted it. "Did you read it?" "No," Harriet said firmly. "But I know enough. That family, what they did to him after the accident wasn't right. The way they controlled his care, his visitors, his money." She hesitated. "The night before he passed, he was lucid. He made me promise to tell you. The truth starts with Sophia." "Sophia?" Elena repeated. The name meant nothing to her. "I don't know who that is," Harriet admitted. "But there's something else. Howard Lane has been trying to reach you." Elena's head snapped up. Howard had been Thomas's closest friend since childhood, the only Wayne family associate who had treated their marriage with respect. He'd vanished mysteriously 2 months before Thomas's death, a business trip that everyone spoke about in hushed tones. "Where is he?" she asked urgently. "I don't know, but he left something for you." Harriet reached into her practical nurse's bag and withdrew a small envelope. "He said when everything falls apart, go to the place where Thomas proposed." The weight of conspiracy pressed against Elena's chest. How much had Thomas hidden from her? How much danger had he shielded her from? Her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. "They're coming. Take only what matters." H. Through the window, Elena spotted a black SUV pulling up to the curb. "You need to go," Elena told Harriet urgently. "They can't find you here." Harriet squeezed Elena's hands. "Thomas believed in you. Whatever he was protecting you from, it scared him more than dying." Her eyes filled with unshed tears. "He loved you, truly. Not the story they're telling." After Harriet slipped out the back stairs, Elena moved quickly. She retrieved the small box she'd found hidden in Thomas's wheelchair 3 days ago, the one containing the vault key and his warning message. She added Harriet's gifts to her meager permitted suitcase. The sound of heavy footsteps on the stairs gave her seconds, not minutes. As she prepared to face whatever came next, Elena thought about the 3 years she'd spent loving Thomas Wayne. She'd arrived in his life, an independent woman with dreams of academic tenure and Russian literature translations. She was leaving a widow with $5 and a target on her back. But they had overlooked something crucial about Elena Townsend. Before she had been anyone's wife, she had survived the collapse of everything once before. As a child in post-Soviet Moscow, she had watched powerful men destroy her own family over secrets and money. She had learned to read the currents of power, to translate not just language but intentions. She recognized the smell of corruption wrapped in expensive cologne. Thomas had known exactly who he was marrying, not just a lover, but a survivor, and perhaps his final weapon against the family who had controlled him his entire life. The apartment door burst open. Vincent Wayne stood framed in the doorway, flanked by two security men in dark suits. "Time's up," he said coldly, "and we have some questions about your activities today." Elena lifted her chin, the brass key burning against her skin where she'd hidden it on a thin chain around her neck. "How interesting," she replied softly. "I have some questions for you as well." "I have a right to collect my personal belongings," Elena said, gripping her suitcase handle as Vincent and his men entered the apartment. The floorboards creaked beneath their expensive shoes, the small space suddenly claustrophobic with their presence. Vincent's lips twisted into something resembling a smile. "Rights? You forfeited any rights when you manipulated my brother during his illness." One of the security men began methodically searching the apartment, pulling out drawers, checking behind fixtures. The other blocked the doorway, his expression professionally blank. "Looking for something specific?" Elena asked, her heart pounding against the key hidden beneath her blouse. Vincent circled her like a predator. "The family has reason to believe Thomas may have been confused in his final days, perhaps giving away things that weren't his to give." The security man overturned the small wooden box where she'd kept her wedding jewelry. "Nothing, sir. My brother was an idealist," Vincent continued, his tone softening into something more complex, a mixture of genuine affection and contempt. "Always fighting imaginary injustices, ever since the boating accident at the Dambridge property 10 years ago. I'm afraid his condition may have led him to share certain confidential family matters with you." Elena caught it then. The brief mention of Dambridge dropped like a test. Thomas had told her his paralysis resulted from a car crash. This was the first she'd heard of any boating accident. "Thomas kept no secrets from me," she replied, studying Vincent's face. It was a lie. She was beginning to realize how many secrets her husband had kept, not to deceive her, but to protect her. Vincent's phone buzzed. The flash of concern across his face as he read the message gave Elena a momentary advantage. "I'm leaving now," she announced, moving toward the door. "Unless you intend to physically prevent me?" Vincent's jaw tightened. "This isn't over. The family has questions about recent activities at certain financial institutions. I have only $5 to my name," Elena replied coolly. "Your family made that abundantly clear." She brushed past the security man, half expecting to be stopped. But Vincent called them off with a sharp gesture. "We'll be watching you," he said as she reached the hallway. "Whatever you think you know, whatever you think you have, it won't stand against the Wayne family." His voice softened unexpectedly. "Thomas was the best of us, Elena. Don't tarnish what's left of him." The flash of genuine grief in his eyes caught her off guard, a reminder that even monsters could love in their way. 30 minutes later, Elena stood in the quiet reading room of the Central Library, the one place she knew had no security cameras. Afternoon light filtered through high windows, dust motes dancing in the beams. With trembling fingers, she opened Thomas's journal. The pages contained no personal reflections as she'd expected, only names, dates, and coded notations. But pressed between the center pages was a small photograph of a woman holding an infant. The resemblance to Thomas was unmistakable. Scrawled on the back, "Sophia and Adam, 2012. Elena's breath caught. Thomas had no children, at least none he'd ever mentioned. Yet here was evidence of a woman and child with his unmistakable eyes. Her phone chimed with a text from an unfamiliar number. Botanical Garden. Southeast Greenhouse. 30 minutes. Come alone. The Botanical Garden, where Thomas had proposed beneath flowering cherry blossoms. Howard's message suddenly made sense. 28 minutes later, Elena entered the humid greenhouse, her senses overwhelmed by the scent of orchids and damp earth. A man sat on a stone bench, his back to her, water droplets condensing on the glass walls around them. "Howard!" He turned, and Elena gasped. Howard Lane's handsome face was barely recognizable. A jagged scar ran from his temple to his jaw, his left eye clouded white dead. "Hello, Nat." His voice was the same, at least. "I'm sorry about Thomas." "What happened to you?" she whispered. A warning from the Wayne family. He gestured to his damaged face. "This is what happens to people who ask questions about Danbridge Chemical." "What's Danbridge Chemical?" Howard's expression darkened. The chemical manufacturing company Richard Wayne acquired 10 years ago after its CEO had an unfortunate boating accident on Lake Geneva. The same accident that paralyzed Thomas. "Thomas told me it was a car crash," Elena said, confusion clouding her features. Another Wayne family fiction. Howard leaned forward, the scent of antiseptic still clinging to his clothes. Thomas was never supposed to survive that day. When he did, confined to a wheelchair, but with his mind intact, they turned him into the family's public face of charitable giving. Their tame, broken prince. Elena's world tilted sideways. "Are you saying his family tried to kill him?" "I'm saying Thomas discovered something about Danbridge's operations that terrified him. Something worth protecting you from." Howard pressed a flash drive into her palm. "He gave me this the week before I was attacked. Said if anything happened to either of us, you should take it to Rebecca Stark at the Justice Department." "I don't understand. Why would Thomas keep this from me?" "Because he knew they were watching. After he met you, he had something to lose." Howard glanced nervously toward the entrance. "The vault at Zurich National. Have you accessed it yet?" "No, but they somehow know about it," Elena admitted. "Who is Sophia?" Howard's good eye widened. "He told you about her?" "No." His nurse mentioned the name. Howard stood abruptly. "We can't talk here. They followed you." Through the greenhouse glass, Elena spotted two men in dark suits entering the garden's main gate. "The back service entrance," Howard urged, already moving. "Take this." He handed her a car key. "Blue sedan, south lot. Get to Zurich National before they freeze the accounts." "Come with me," Elena pleaded. Howard's damaged face twisted in regret. "I can't. They'll be watching for me. I'll create a diversion." He gripped her shoulders. "Thomas believed you were strong enough for this. Don't prove him wrong." Before she could respond, he kissed her cheek and disappeared among the dense, tropical foliage. As Elena slipped through the service entrance, a commotion erupted from the main greenhouse, Howard's diversion. She ran, heart pounding, toward the parking lot. Inside the blue sedan, she found a passport bearing her photo but a different name, $5,000 in cash, and a handwritten note in Thomas's familiar script. "My darling, if you're reading this, I failed to protect you from my family's sins. The truth is in the vault. I'm sorry for what I'm asking you to become. Forgive me." Elena started the engine just as security men burst into the parking lot. The choices before her crystallized with sudden clarity: run and hide, or dive headlong into the darkness Thomas had tried to shield her from. She pressed the accelerator, decision made. Whatever secrets the Wayne family was protecting, Thomas had believed she was strong enough to handle them. And for the first time since his death, Elena felt something beyond grief stir within her. Vengeance. The sleek glass towers of Zurich National Bank reflected the setting sun as Elena approached, casting the street in amber light. She'd changed into clothes from the emergency bag Howard had prepared, a tailored navy suit that spoke of quiet money. Her Russian accent deliberately thickened to match the Swiss passport, identifying her as Natalia Volkova. Security cameras tracked her movement across the marble lobby. The weight of the brass key against her collarbone felt heavier with each step. "I have an appointment," she told the private banking representative, sliding Thomas's key across the polished desk. The woman's eyes widened fractionally. "Of course, Ms. Volkova. Please follow me." They descended in a private elevator, the air growing noticeably cooler. Elena counted 3 separate security checkpoints before they reached the vault level. At each, the staff exchanged glances that confirmed her suspicion. The Wayne family had already been here, asking questions. "I'll need privacy," Elena said as they reached the final security door. "Certainly. There's a viewing room connected to the vault. Take as much time as you need." The woman's professional mask slipped momentarily. Mr. Wayne always did. The safe deposit box was larger than she'd expected. Inside, Elena found no money, only a leather portfolio and a sealed envelope marked for N, opened first. Her hands trembled as she broke the seal. My dearest Elena, if you're reading this, I've died without telling you the full truth. I've been a coward, protecting you by keeping you in the dark. But I always knew this day might come. The contents of this vault will destroy my family. Before you decide what to do with them, you deserve to know everything. 10 years ago, Danbridge Chemical was developing a revolutionary water filtration system that would have made clean drinking water affordable worldwide. My father wanted to buy the company. When CEO James Barrett refused to sell, my family arranged a tragic accident on his yacht. I was there. I wasn't supposed to survive either. They killed James and his wife. They tried to kill me. When I survived, paralyzed but aware of everything, they kept me medicated and isolated for years. What you'll find in this portfolio is proof, not just of that day, but of decades of corruption. Use it carefully. Trust Rebecca Stark at Justice, no one else. I never told you about Sophia because I couldn't risk putting you in danger. Now I've left you no choice but to face it. I'm sorry for that. Whatever you decide, know that loving you is the one true thing in my life. Thomas. Elena opened the portfolio with unsteady hands. Inside were photographs, financial records, medical reports, and voice recordings spanning 2 decades. The Wayne family empire, built on bribery, intimidation, and murder. She found the Danbridge Chemical files first. Photos of a yacht explosion, coroner's reports, insurance investigations, and most damning, Eleanor Wayne's handwritten notes detailing the sabotage plan. But it was a birth certificate that stopped her cold. Adam Thomas Wayne, born to Thomas Wayne and Sophia Barrett, 2012. The phone Howard had given her rang, startling her from shock. Did you find it? A woman's voice, authoritative and tense. Who is this? Rebecca Stark, Justice Department. I've been working with Thomas for 3 years. We don't have much time. The bank just received a court order to seal that vault. You need to leave now. Elena's mind raced. How do I know I can trust you? Thomas said you'd ask that. His code phrase was midnight in Moscow. He said you'd understand. Their private joke. The first night they'd spent together, reading Pasternak by candlelight during a power outage. I have the evidence, Elena said, sliding the portfolio into her bag. Not there. Meet me at Hotel Schweizerhof, room 412, in 30 minutes. Come through the service entrance. The line went dead. As Elena exited the vault area, she noticed 2 men in suits speaking with the bank manager, their body language screaming federal agents. She slipped into a stairwell just as one turned in her direction. The service entrance of a Schweizerhof was guarded by a young man with watchful eyes who nodded at her approach. Miss Stark is expecting you. Room 412 revealed not the government official Elena had imagined, but a compact woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. The room was a command center, laptops, surveillance equipment, case files. I've been building a case against the Waynes for 7 years, Rebecca explained without preamble. Thomas contacted me after he met you. Said you gave him the courage to finally do what was right. I don't understand, Elena said. If he had all this evidence, why didn't he come forward sooner? Rebecca's expression softened with unexpected compassion. Because of Sophia and Adam, the Waynes threatened them after the accident. Thomas had to choose, his new family or justice for James Barrett. Sophia was James Barrett's daughter. Elena realized the connections finally aligning. Thomas fell in love with her while working with her father. Rebecca nodded. When Thomas finally found them 2 years ago, hidden in a witness protection program the Waynes didn't know about, he started gathering evidence. But by then, he'd met you. She paused. He was trying to protect both of his families. The revelation struck Elena like a physical blow. Thomas had a child, a son she'd never known about, with another woman he'd love enough to marry in secret. Where are they now? She asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Safe house in Montana. That's their last known location. Rebecca studied Elena's face. Thomas wanted you to have options. You can walk away now. Let's handle this. The evidence you brought us is enough. Elena thought of the $5 bill in her purse. of Eleanor Wayne's smirking face, of Thomas, trapped in a wheelchair for a decade because he'd witnessed something he shouldn't have. No, she said finally. Thomas believed I was strong enough to finish this. I won't disappoint him. Rebecca's phone buzzed. Her face paled as she read the message. They know you have the files. Richard Wayne just called in every favor he has. They're suspending my investigation pending an internal review. What does that mean? It means we have 24 hours before I'm pulled off this case. 24 hours before the evidence gets buried. Rebecca reached for a secure laptop. Show me what Thomas gave you. As they reviewed the files, a pattern emerged, not just of corruption, but of a specific project at Danbridge. Something called Phoenix Protocol. This is bigger than we thought, Rebecca murmured. Danbridge wasn't just developing water filtration. They were discovering evidence of water contamination at Wayne industrial sites worldwide. A knock at the door silenced them both. Rebecca motioned Elena toward the bathroom, drawing her service weapon. Special Agent Stark? FBI, we need to speak with you. Rebecca's expression hardened. We're blown. Take the fire escape. Meet our contact at the location in this envelope. Don't trust anyone else. She pressed a small package into Elena's hands. Even me. As Elena slipped out the window, she heard Rebecca greeting the agents with professional courtesy. A perfect distraction. Night had fallen by the time she opened the envelope blocks away. Inside was a train ticket to Geneva and a handwritten address, and a photo that made her breath catch. Thomas, smiling, with his arm around a woman holding a young boy. On the back, in Thomas's handwriting, my family. All of them, though all was underlined twice. With sudden clarity, Elena realized Thomas hadn't just been preparing evidence against his family. He'd been preparing for a future where all the people he loved could be safe together. Sophia, Adam, and her. A future now resting entirely in her hands. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Wayne's security team dispatched to train station. They know about Geneva. A trap. But who had warned her? Standing beneath a streetlight, Elena made her decision. The Wayne family had underestimated Thomas for years. Now, they were underestimating her. She hailed a taxi and gave an address. Not the train station, but the one place in Zurich the Waynes would never think to look for her. Vincent Wayne's private apartment. It was time to change the rules of this game. Vincent Wayne's private apartment occupied the top floor of a discreet building overlooking Lake Zurich. Unlike the Wayne family estate with its oppressive grandeur, this space reflected a different man. Minimalist furnishings, walls lined with books, jazz records meticulously organized. No photographs, no personal touches. A monk's cell disguised as luxury. Elena sat in darkness, the evidence portfolio open on Vincent's glass coffee table. She'd arranged the most damning photographs like tarot cards predicting ruin. The silence felt like a physical presence as she waited. At 10:47 p.m., she heard his key in the lock. Vincent froze in the doorway, his silhouette rigid against the hallway light. How did you get in here? Your brother taught me a few things about Wayne's security systems, she answered, not moving from her position in his leather armchair. Please join me. I made us tea. A moment's hesitation. Then Vincent closed the door and flipped on a single lamp. His eyes flickered to the photographs, then back to her face. You're either very brave or very foolish, he said, removing his coat with deliberate calm. There are 6 men searching for you at the train station. I know. Elena pushed a cup of tea toward him. Sit down, Vincent. This conversation is overdue. Something shifted in his expression, not surprise or anger, but a strange relief. He sat across from her, not touching the tea. I assume Thomas left you quite a roadmap, he said, nodding toward the evidence. Enough to destroy your family 10 times over. She studied his face, the same aristocratic bones as Thomas, but harder, colder. But that's not why I'm here. Why then? To understand why a man would try to murder his own brother. Vincent's laugh was unexpected, sharp, and genuinely amused. Is that what Thomas told you? I tried to kill him. The evidence is quite clear about the Danbridge sabotage. Yes, the sabotage happened. Yes, it killed James Barrett and his wife. Vincent leaned forward, his eyes intense. But Thomas wasn't supposed to be on that boat. I was. The silence stretched between them. You were the target, Elena finally asked. My father needed someone from the family to die in that tragic accident. Too suspicious otherwise. His voice was eerily calm. I was the expendable son, the disappointment. Thomas was the golden child. But Thomas overheard them planning. He took my place without telling me. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Why would Thomas protect you? Because he was a better man than any of us deserved. Vincent's composure finally cracked. I didn't know what my father had planned until it was too late. By the time I reached the lake, the yacht was already burning. Elena's mind raced, reassessing everything. If what you're saying is true, why have you been hunting me? Why take everything from me after Thomas died? Because my father was watching. Because staying close to the family was the only way to protect what Thomas built. Vincent reached into his jacket and removed a small device. He activated it, bathing the room in a soft blue light. Electronic countermeasures. Now we can speak freely. He rose, moving to a bookshelf where he removed the false panel, revealing a safe. Inside was another portfolio, identical to the one Thomas had left in the vault. Thomas and I worked together for 10 years, gathering evidence against our father. Vincent's voice had changed, the aristocratic polish giving way to something rawer. We had different methods, but the same goal. I played the loyal son, while Thomas appeared to retreat into philanthropy. Thomas never told me any of this. He couldn't risk it, not until we had everything. Vincent spread photographs across the table, surveillance images of Richard Wayne meeting with government officials, passing envelopes, shaking hands. Thomas handled the paper trail. I handled the personal surveillance. Why should I believe you? Elena demanded, though doubt had already taken root. In answer, Vincent played a video on his phone, Thomas, in his wheelchair, speaking directly to the camera. If you're watching this, Elena, it means you've followed the breadcrumbs to Vincent. Trust him. He's been my partner in this from the beginning. The sight of Thomas, alive, intense, his eyes burning with purpose, stole her breath. Why the charade at the will reading? The $5. Because my father was watching, Vincent repeated. Because we knew he'd send someone to search your apartment. The insult was calculated to make you angry enough to act, but not so devastated you'd give up. We needed you to find the key. Elena's voice had turned to ice. Vincent hesitated. Thomas, Rebecca, Howard, and me. You all manipulated me. The betrayal cut deeper than she'd thought possible. You used me as a pawn. No, as the queen. Vincent's gaze was unflinching. The most powerful piece on the board, who could move in any direction while the rest of us were constrained by our roles. Where are Sophia and Adam? Elena asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. Vincent's expression changed. That's the problem. They're missing. Missing. They disappeared from the safe house 3 days before Thomas died. No signs of struggle. No warning. Just gone. Vincent's face darkened. My father has been unusually confident since then. We believe he found them. The implication hung in the air between them, that Richard Wayne now had leverage over them all. Thomas's death wasn't from his condition, was it? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. No. The medical examiner was paid well to overlook the toxicology results. Vincent's voice roughened. My father poisoned him. A final visit, a doctored medication. By the time I realized it was too late, Elena closed her eyes, absorbing the horror of it. When she opened them, her gaze was steel. Where would your father take them? The family has a compound in Switzerland. Lake Geneva, where it all started. Vincent studied her face. But we can't move against him directly. Not while he has them. No, Elena agreed. But I can. Vincent's phone chimed with an alert. His face paled as he read the message. Rebecca has been arrested. Corruption charges. He looked up. Howard is offline too. We've been compromised. As if summoned by the words, the apartment's lights cut out. Emergency systems bathed the room in dim red. Security breach, announced an automated voice. Containment protocol initiated. Vincent moved with unexpected speed, gathering the evidence. Panic room now. They barely reached the hidden doorway when the first explosion rocked the building. Vincent shoved Elena inside the reinforced chamber, thrusting the combined evidence portfolios into her hands. 8 minutes until secondary systems fail, he said, backing toward the door. Escape tunnel leads to the parking garage. Take the black Range Rover. You're not coming? Elena realized with sudden clarity. Someone has to slow them down. Vincent's face showed the family resemblance to Thomas most clearly in that moment. The same stubborn determination. Find Sophia and Adam. Save what's left of our family. Before she could protest, he sealed the door from the outside. Through the panic room surveillance system, Elena watched as armed men breached the apartment. Vincent, standing calmly in the center of the room, empty-handed. Richard Wayne entered last, impeccably dressed despite the late hour. Where is she, Vincent? Gone, Vincent replied, along with everything Thomas collected. It's over, father. Richard's laugh was chilling. Nothing is over until I say it is. Your brother learned that lesson too late. He nodded to one of the men, who stepped forward with a syringe. Perhaps you'll be more reasonable when we bring you home. Elena's hands tightened on the evidence as she watched Vincent collapse. Her escape countdown showed 5 minutes remaining. A notification flashed on the panic room's secure terminal. Message from TW. Emergency protocol activated. With trembling fingers, she opened it. The screen filled with Thomas's face, gaunt but determined, a video recorded shortly before his death. Elena, if you're seeing this, everything has fallen apart. Vincent has initiated the panic protocol, which means our timeline has accelerated. His voice was weak but resolute. What I'm about to ask is unfair, but it's our only chance. Sophia and Adam are at the Lake Geneva compound. My father will use them as leverage. But there's something he doesn't know. Thomas leaned closer to the camera, his eyes intense. Adam isn't my son. He's Vincent's. The revelation hit Elena like physical blow. Sophia and I protected them both. Vincent couldn't acknowledge his own son without putting him in danger. My father would have used Adam against him, just as he used everyone. Thomas's eyes filled with tears. I love them as my own, just as I loved you. Different loves, both real. The countdown showed 3 minutes. In the Zurich vault is a second key, smaller, silver. It opens a safe deposit box at Geneva Trust. Inside is everything you need for what comes next. Thomas's face softened. I'm sorry for the secrets, for leaving you to face this alone. But you are always the strongest of us all. The message ended with coordinates, the exact location of the Wayne family compound. Elena wiped tears from her cheeks, a cold clarity settling over her. In less than a week, she had lost her husband, her home, and any illusion of the life she'd thought she was living. Now Richard Wayne had taken Vincent too. The panic room countdown reached 1 minute as Elena gathered the evidence portfolios and located the silver key hidden in a concealed compartment. The escape tunnel beckoned, dark and uncertain, just like the path ahead. As she disappeared into the tunnel, Elena felt something crystallize within her, harder and sharper than grief or betrayal. Thomas had trusted her with his final mission. Vincent had sacrificed himself to give her a chance. Richard Wayne had destroyed the people she loved. Now she would destroy him. The black Range Rover hugged the winding roads along Lake Geneva as dawn broke, painting the Swiss Alps in watercolor hues. Elena had driven through the night, stopping only to change vehicles twice using the emergency protocols Thomas had established. Her body ached with fatigue, her mind racing between grief, betrayal, and determination. The Geneva Trust Bank wouldn't open for 3 more hours. With Richard Wayne's resources hunting her, staying in one place felt dangerous. Yet she needed rest, even 10 minutes to close her burning eyes. She pulled into an isolated viewpoint overlooking the lake. In the distance, barely visible across the water, stood the Wayne family compound, a fortress of old stone and modern security disguised as a historic estate. Somewhere inside were Sophia and Adam, and now Vincent. For the first time since Thomas's death, Elena allowed herself a moment to simply breathe. She closed her eyes, leaning her forehead against the steering wheel. A tap on the window jerked her awake. Howard Lane stood outside, his scarred face impassive. Elena's heart leapt, relief, then immediate suspicion. Vincent had said Howard went offline. How had he found her? She cracked the window. How did you know I was here? Emergency protocol. All the Wayne vehicles have trackers that only Thomas, Vincent, and I could access. Is good I studied her. You have the evidence? Yes. We need to move it somewhere secure. Richard's people compromised Rebecca's operation. They're checking every bank in Geneva. Elena's hands tightened on the steering wheel. How do I know you haven't been compromised too? Howard's expression softened. Because I was the one who helped Thomas hide Sophia and Adam for 8 years. Because Vincent and I have been friends since we were children. Because his voice caught. Because Thomas trusted you above all of us, and I trust his judgment. Exhaustion clouded her thinking. She needed an ally. Reluctantly, she unlocked the doors. Howard slipped into the passenger seat, bringing the scent of expensive cologne. Not his usual sandalwood, Elena realized too late. The cologne of the Wayne family men. The needle slid in her neck with practiced precision. I'm truly sorry, Howard said as darkness claimed her. But you don't understand what's at stake. Elena woke to the gentle rocking of a boat. She lay on a leather bench in a luxury cabin, her hands bound before her. Through large windows, she saw Lake Geneva's choppy waters, and growing larger with every passing minute, the private dock of the Wayne estate. You're resilient, said a cultured voice. Most people stay unconscious much longer. Richard Wayne sat opposite her, immaculately dressed in sailing attire. His resemblance to his sons was striking. The same aristocratic features, the same intensity, but with a cruelty in the eyes that neither Thomas nor Vincent had inherited. Howard stood behind him, his expression unreadable. What? Elena asked, the single word directed at Howard. My children have always been idealists, Richard answered instead. They never understood the necessity of compromise, of sacrifice for the greater good. Poisoning your son was for the greater good? She spat. A flicker of something, perhaps genuine grief, crossed Richard's face. Thomas forced my hand. He always did. He gestured toward Howard. Show her. Howard opened a laptop. On the screen was a hospital room where a young boy slept, monitors beeping steadily. A woman sat beside the bed, beautiful despite her exhaustion, her resemblance to the photograph undeniable. Sophia. Adam became ill 3 days before Thomas died, Richard explained. A rare condition requiring specialized treatment. Sophia contacted the one person she knew could help. You, Elena said, understanding dawning. She came to you voluntarily. Family takes care of its own, Richard said simply. Even family that tries to destroy us. You're manipulating her with her son's illness. Richard's smile was terrible in its sincerity. I'm saving my grandson's life. The treatments are working. Adam will recover fully, under my protection. And Thomas? Was murdering him part of your protection? The boat slowed as it approached the dock. Richard studied her with curious detachment. Thomas made his choice when he chose Vincent's crusade over his family's legacy. Vincent is your family too. Vincent is resting comfortably. He'll come to understand his responsibilities, just as you will. Fear clutched at Elena's throat. What do you want from me? The evidence, of course. All of it. And your silence. Richard nodded to Howard, who produced papers from a briefcase. Sign these, renouncing all claims to Thomas's estate, agreeing to confidentiality, and you'll walk away with $10 million. Enough to start a new life anywhere. And if I refuse? Richard's smile faded. Then I'll be forced to conclude you're as much a threat as my sons became. The boat docked with a gentle bump. Through the windows, Elena could see armed security personnel waiting on the pier. You're a smart woman, Elena, Richard continued. You understand self-preservation. Neither of my sons did. The implication hung in the air that both Thomas and Vincent were casualties of their principles, that she would be next. The evidence portfolios, Howard said, his voice carefully neutral. Where are they? Elena met his gaze. In the Range Rover's hidden compartment. The key to the Geneva Trust deposit box is in my left shoe. Howard nodded to one of the security men, who left immediately. "A wise choice," Richard said, signaling for her restraints to be removed. As feeling returned to her hands, Elena spotted Sophia through the windows, walking slowly along the dock, her posture speaking of exhaustion and defeat. "May I speak with her?" Elena asked. "Why?" Richard's suspicion was immediate. "Because she loved Thomas too. Because she's living my nightmare." Elena's voice cracked with genuine emotion. "Because I need to understand." After a moment's consideration, Richard nodded. Briefly, on the deck, under supervision, the lake air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine from the surrounding forests. Sophia Barrett was younger than Elena had expected, early 30s, with intelligent eyes now dimmed by worry. "You must be Elena," Sophia said softly. "Thomas spoke of you often." "He never mentioned you," Elena replied, then regretted the edge in her voice. Sophia's smile was sad. "That was the agreement. To keep Adam safe." She glanced toward the estate. "He's responding well to the treatment. The doctors say he'll recover completely." "At what cost?" "Whatever it takes." The fierceness in Sophia's voice was that of a mother who would burn the world for her child. "Judge me if you want. Until you've watched your child struggle to breathe, you can't understand." Elena studied the woman Thomas had loved first. "Did you know what Richard did to Thomas?" Pain flashed across Sophia's features. Not until it was too late. By then, Adam was already dependent on the treatments only Richard could provide. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Vincent tried to find alternative doctors, but Adam's condition is too rare, too complex." "Vincent," Elena repeated. "Adam's real father." Shock registered on Sophia's face. "How did you?" "Thomas told me, in his final message." Sophia closed her eyes briefly. "Then you understand the impossible choice we all face." When she opened them again, something had changed, a flash of the strength that must have drawn Thomas to her. "Richard controls everything, the medical team, the facility, the treatment protocol. Without him, Adam dies. And with him, justice for Thomas dies instead." Sophia took Elena's hands, her grip surprisingly strong. "There's something you should know about the evidence Thomas and Vincent collected." Before she could continue, Howard approached. "Time's up. Richard wants you both inside." The grand hall of the Wayne estate was a cathedral to old money, vaulted ceilings, ancestral portraits, priceless antiques. Security personnel positioned at every entrance suggested a less aristocratic reality. Richard waited by a massive fireplace, the evidence portfolios open on a table before him. "Magnificent work," he said, almost admiring. 10 years of documentation. Every questionable deal, every political favor, every corporate takeover." He selected a particular file, even the Dambridge accident. Thomas was always thorough. The security man who had retrieved the portfolios handed Richard the small silver key from Elena's shoe. And now, the final piece. Richard held up the key. "Whatever Thomas hid at Geneva Trust." He turned to Howard. "Bring the car around. We'll visit the bank when it opens." "I'd like to see Vincent," Elena said. Richard considered her for a moment. "Why not? It might help him understand the sensible choice you've made." They descended to a lower level of the estate, where modern security doors contrasted with the historic stonework. Beyond them lay a suite that resembled an upscale hospital room. Vincent lay on a bed, eyes open but unfocused, and four in his arm. Medical equipment monitored his vital signs. "A mild sedative," Richard explained. "Nothing permanent, just enough to help him think clearly about his priorities." He gestured for Elena to approach. 5 minutes. When they were alone, Elena took Vincent's hand. His fingers twitched in recognition. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "They have everything, the evidence, the key." Vincent's voice was slurred but understandable. "Sakai, let him think he's won. They're holding Sophia and Adam hostage with medical care. There's no way out." Vincent's eyes struggled to focus on her face. "Thomas always had contingency." "What contingency?" "Vincent, stay with me." His voice dropped to the barest whisper. "Geneva Trust, not evidence. It's insurance." A security guard opened the door. "Time's up." As Elena was escorted back upstairs, despair washed over her in waves. Every path forward seemed blocked. Richard held all the leverage: Sophia's cooperation through Adam's illness, Vincent neutralized by drugs, the evidence back in his possession, and her own freedom dependent on his goodwill. The morning sun streamed through stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across the marble floor where Howard waited, car keys in hand. "The bank opens in 30 minutes, he said, not meeting her eyes. "Why, Howard?" she asked quietly. "After everything Thomas and Vincent did. After what they did to you." She gestured to his scarred face. Howard finally looked at her, his damaged eye cloudy with memory. "Because they have my daughter too. Because nobody is clean in this, Elena. Not even Thomas." The revelation struck her like physical blow. "What do you mean? Ask yourself why Thomas married you, but kept Sophia and Adam secret. Why he collected evidence for 10 years, but never used it." Howard's voice was hollow. "Because Richard always finds our weaknesses. Always. For Thomas, it was you. For Vincent, it was his son. For me, a daughter I didn't know I had until Richard presented her to me. The weight of it all, the cascading betrayals, the impossible choices, the web of secrets, pressed down on Elena until she could barely breathe." Outside, the sleek black car waited to take them to Geneva Trust, to surrender Thomas's final secret, to complete her defeat. Richard joined them, tucking the silver key into his pocket. "Shall we?" As they walked toward the car, Elena caught sight of Sophia watching from an upstairs window, her expression unreadable. Beyond her, barely visible, was a small figure in a hospital bed. Adam, the innocent center of this web of corruption and love. Thomas had died, trying to protect them all. Vincent was imprisoned in his own body. Howard had sacrificed his integrity for his unknown child. Sophia had surrendered to Richard's control to save her son. And Elena, what did she have left to fight for? The husband she'd lost was not the man she'd thought she knew. The truth she'd sought was uglier and more complex than she'd imagined. Justice seemed a naive concept in the face of Richard Wayne's calculated cruelty and overwhelming power. As she slid into the back seat beside Richard, Elena felt hollow, a vessel emptied of everything but exhaustion. The Geneva Trust Bank loomed in her mind as the final surrender point. Whatever Thomas had hidden there, it would soon belong to the man who had destroyed him. "You look tired," Richard observed, almost kindly. "When this is done, you'll be free to go, to grieve properly, to start again." The irony of his false compassion was almost too much to bear. Howard started the engine, his scarred profile rigid with suppressed emotion. Elena closed her eyes, thinking of Thomas's final message. "You were always the strongest of us all." But in that moment, with all paths to justice blocked, with every ally compromised or captured, with every truth revealed more painful than the last, Elena Townsend had never felt weaker or more alone. The sleek black car glided through Geneva's morning traffic, Howard at the wheel, Richard beside him. Elena sat in the back, watching the city wake through tinted windows. Cafes opened their doors. Business people hurried along sidewalks, normal lives untouched by the corruption that had consumed hers. Something Thomas had said in his final message echoed her mind. "Adam isn't my son. He's Vincent's. Why reveal that now?" The timing seemed deliberate, calculated, as if Thomas had anticipated this exact scenario, as if he'd been leaving her a clue. Her literature professor's mind clicked into place, analyzing text, finding patterns, decoding meaning. Thomas hadn't just been protecting Vincent's relationship with Sophia and Adam. He'd been constructing a narrative for Richard to believe, a story with deliberate blind spots. "We're here," Howard announced, pulling up to the elegant facade of Geneva Trust. Richard straightened his tie, the silver key glinting between his fingers. "Shall we conclude our business, Elena?" The banking floor was hushed opulence, marble and mahogany, discreet staff moving with practiced efficiency. Richard approached the private client manager, presenting credentials and the key with aristocratic confidence. "My daughter-in-law, and I would like to access a deposit box registered to my late son." Elena's surprise must have shown on her face. Richard smiled thinly. "For today's purposes, Maintaining family appearances seems prudent. The manager examined the key. Of course, Mr. Wayne. However, I see this as a dual access box. Both registered key holders must be present. Richard's smile faltered. I'm the executor of my son's estate. Surely that's sufficient. I'm afraid our security protocols are quite clear. The second key holder must present their key and identification. And who? Richard asked with dangerous calm. Is the second key holder? The manager consulted his screen. A Ms. Sophia Barrett Wayne. The calculated precision of Thomas's plan struck Elena like lightning. He hadn't just been hiding Sophia and Adam from Richard. He'd been positioning them as legal equals in whatever insurance the deposit box contained. Richard's face hardened. There's been a mistake. My son was married to this woman. He gestured to Elena. Our records indicate Mr. Wayne had 2 registered marriages, the manager replied, visibly uncomfortable. Swiss privacy laws prevent me from discussing details, but both Ms. Townsend and Ms. Barrett Wayne would need to be present, each with their keys. Richard turned to Elena, rage simmering beneath his composed exterior. Did you know about this? No, she answered truthfully. But Thomas always was thorough. As they exited the bank, Richard's control finally slipped. Get Sophia here. Now, he snapped to Howard, and double the security on Vincent and the boy. Howard stepped away to make the call, leaving Elena momentarily alone with Richard on the bank's marble steps. You understand this changes nothing, Richard said coldly. Merely delays the inevitable. Does it? Elena asked. For the first time since Thomas's death, she felt the stirring of genuine hope. Or did Thomas ensure you'd need both women you despise to access whatever he left behind? Richard studied her with new wariness. You're starting to sound like my sons. That didn't end well for them. Howard returned, his expression grim. We have a problem. Sophia's gone. She took Adam from the medical suite 20 minutes ago. Impossible, Richard snapped. The estate is locked down. The medical team says she showed them authorization from you to transfer the boy to the hospital in Geneva for tests. Howard's damaged. I seem to gleam with something like satisfaction. They're searching the grounds now. Richard's face contorted with fury. Find them. Use every resource. He rounded on Elena. Did you arrange this during your little chat on the dock? How could I? Elena's mind raced. Sophia's words came back to her. There's something you should know about the evidence Thomas and Vincent collected. She'd been trying to send a message. Richard's phone rang. His expression darkened further as he listened. What do you mean he's gone too? He was sedated. He ended the call with violent force. Vincent has disappeared from the medical suite. The estate's in chaos. A memory surfaced. Vincent's slurred words. Thomas always had contingency. Not a contingency. The contingency. A plan set in motion long before Thomas died. Howard's phone chimed with a text. Whatever he read made his scarred face go perfectly still. What is it? Richard demanded. Nothing, Howard replied too quickly. Estate security requesting instructions. But Elena had seen the change in his posture, the way his good eye had widened. A message that shocked him, or a signal he'd been waiting for. Richard paced the bank steps, issuing rapid orders into his phone. In his agitation, he'd positioned himself between Elena and the car. Howard moved closer to her, speaking under his breath. When I create an opening, run east 2 blocks to the Cathedral Square. Don't look back. Elena's heart pounded. What? Decide now? Howard cut her off. I can only make this offer once. She studied his damaged face, seeing for the first time something beyond the betrayal, a calculation of performance. The same forced loyalty Vincent had demonstrated to protect those he loved. Yes, she whispered. Howard nodded once, then raised his voice. Sir, security reports movement at the east perimeter of the estate. As Richard turned away to take another call, Howard discreetly dropped his phone into the drainage grate at their feet. Damn, he muttered, bending to reach for it. In that motion, he slipped something into Elena's coat pocket. Now he whispered. Elena didn't hesitate. She turned and walked quickly away from the bank, forcing herself not to run despite every instinct screaming for speed. Behind her, she heard Howard creating a distraction, something about tracking capabilities, estate security protocols. By the time Richard's shout of rage reached her ears, she had already rounded the corner. 2 blocks east, the cathedral square opened before her, morning sunlight gleaming on ancient stones. Tourists snapped photos. Pigeons scattered across the cobblestones. Normality that felt surreal after the nightmare of the Wayne estate. A slender hand gripped her elbow. "Don't react," Sophia said quietly, guiding her towards side chapel. "We have 3 minutes before Richard's security team reaches the square." Inside the dim chapel, Elena found Vincent sitting beside a small boy in a wheelchair. Adam, pale but alert, and 4 still taped to his arm. The resemblance to Vincent was unmistakable now that she knew to look for it. "You're supposed to be sedated," Elena said stupidly. Vincent smiled grimly. "Years of being medicated against my will taught me a few tricks, like how to appear affected while metabolizing the drugs faster than they expect." "How did you escape?" "Thomas's contingency plan," Sophia explained. "Triggered when Howard confirmed you had been captured and Richard had recovered the evidence." "Howard," Elena repeated. "He betrayed you. He's working with your father." "Howard's been playing both sides for years," Vincent said. "His daughter is real. So is his fear for her safety. But his loyalty to Thomas never wavered." "Sophia, check her watch. We need to move. The next phase has a tight window." Elena pulled Howard's gift from her pocket, a sealed envelope and a silver key identical to the one Richard held. Vincent's eyes widened. "The second key. Thomas told me it was with Rebecca. Is Rebecca really arrested?" Elena asked. "No," Vincent said. "That was disinformation fed to my father. She's been coordinating everything from a secure location." Sophia knelt beside her son, checking his for. "Adam, how are you feeling?" The boy gave a brave smile. "Better since the new medicine, Mom." "New medicine?" Elena asked. Vincent's expression darkened. "My father wasn't lying about Adam's condition, but he was controlling the treatment protocol, keeping Adam dependent and sick enough to force Sophia's cooperation." "Howard smuggled in the proper medication last night," Sophia added. "Part of the contingency." The scope of Thomas's planning staggered Elena. Even dying, he'd orchestrated a path to freedom for them all. "We have about 20 minutes before the sedative in Howard's system fully activates," Vincent explained. "He took it right before helping you escape. His final performance to convince my father of his loyalty." "What sedative?" "The one he'll claim you somehow drugged him with during the confusion." Vincent smiled grimly. "Howard's unconsciousness will buy us the time we need to access the deposit box." "But your father has one key, and we have the other," Elena said. "We're at an impasse." Vincent opened the envelope Howard had passed to her. Inside was a document with the Geneva Trust letterhead. "Not quite. This is a lost key protocol form with Thomas's signature and the deposit box number. With this and one key, the bank will grant emergency access." "What's in the box that's so important?" Elena asked. "The one thing my father fears more than public disgrace," Vincent said. "The means to take his wealth." He nodded to Sophia, who reached into Adam's backpack and removed a tablet. On the screen was a secure messaging system, the latest communication from Rebecca Stark. "Operation Contingency proceeding on schedule. Wayne Financial Trading algorithms compromised. Awaiting final authorization codes from deposit box to execute. Thomas discovered years ago that my father had built a backdoor into the Wayne Financial Trading systems," Vincent explained. "A way to liquidate assets instantly in case of government investigation. Thomas and Rebecca replicated it, but the authorization codes are biometric, stored in that deposit box." Sophia checked her watch again. "Richard's men will have established a perimeter around the bank by now. Which is why we're not going to the main branch," Vincent said, producing a folded map with a location circled in red. "Geneva Trust has a private client facility across town. Thomas made sure our box was accessible from both locations." Elena's mind spun with the elaborate layers of Thomas's plan. "Why didn't you tell me any of this before? Why all the secrets, even after his death?" Vincent and Sophia exchanged glances. "Because Thomas wasn't sure who my father might turn," Vincent admitted. "Even me. Even Howard." The only person he trusted completely was you. But he didn't tell me anything. He told you everything that mattered, Sophia said quietly. He left you the wheelchair key. He knew you'd find the Zurich vault. Every step you took was one he believed only you would make. And if Richard had killed me, the evidence would have automatically released to media outlets worldwide, Vincent said. But the Wayne fortune would have remained untouched. Thomas was giving you the choice he never had, justice or survival. The chapel door opened slightly. A woman in a cathedral guide's uniform beckoned urgently. Our escort, Sophia explained, rising to wheel Adam toward the door. Rebecca's team has a secure route prepared. As they moved through hidden corridors beneath the ancient cathedral, Elena's mind cleared. The paralysis of betrayal and despair lifted, replaced by something stronger. The realization that Thomas had trusted her with not just his legacy, but the safety of everyone he loved. 30 minutes later, they entered the private client facility of Geneva Trust through a service entrance. Their escort, one of Rebecca's agents, efficiently presented the emergency access documentation and Vincent's key. The deposit box contained only 3 items: a biometric scanner key to Elena's and Sophia's fingerprints, a USB drive, and a handwritten letter addressed to my family's. As Sophia pressed her finger to the scanner, her eyes met Elena's. Thomas wanted us to do this together. Whatever happens next, he believed in both of us. The scanner glowed green, accepting Sophia's print. When Elena added hers, the device unlocked, revealing a complex series of authorization codes. Vincent plugged the USB into his secure tablet, establishing a connection with Rebecca's team. Once we transmit these codes, my father loses control of the Wayne fortune. 80% of the assets will transfer to humanitarian foundations, with untraceable protections against legal recovery. And the remaining 20%? Elena asked. Split equally between Adam's medical trust, Sophia's witness security fund, and... Vincent paused. Your future, Elena. Thomas was explicit about that. The enormity of it struck her. Not just the destruction of Richard Wayne's power, but Thomas's determination to protect everyone he loved. Do it, she said. As Vincent transmitted the authorization codes, Sophia unfolded Thomas's letter. The 3 of them read it together, Adam dozing against his mother's shoulder. My dearest ones, if you're reading this, you found each other. You've overcome the divisions my father created. You've chosen to act together, as I always hoped you would. Sophia, my first love and the mother of our son. Your strength saved me after the accident. Your willingness to disappear saved Adam from my father's influence. I am forever grateful for both. Vincent, my brother, my conscience, my co-conspirator. You sacrificed your chance to know your son, to keep him safe. You endured our father's presence to gather evidence against him. Your courage made everything possible. Elena, my last and deepest love. You came into my life when I believed myself beyond happiness. You gave me the strength to finish what Vincent and I started. You showed me that justice was still worth fighting for. I couldn't tell any of you the full truth while I lived. My father's surveillance was too thorough, his reach too vast. But I believed that together, you would find a way forward. Adam deserves to grow up free from our father's corruption. Sophia deserves peace after years in hiding. Vincent deserves the chance to know his son. And Elena deserves a future unburdened by Wayne family secrets. I love you all, differently but completely. Forget my methods. Trust each other. And remember that family is what we choose, not what we inherit. Thomas. Vincent's tablet chimed with confirmation. The transfer protocols have been activated. Richard Wayne's financial empire was dissolving in real time. What happens now? Elena asked, her voice thick with emotion. Now, Vincent said, we disappear until the dust settles. Rebecca's team has arranged secure transport to a safe house in Italy. From there, we can monitor the fallout as Richard faces federal investigations without his fortune to protect him. All of us, Elena clarified. Together, Sophia reached across the table, taking Elena's hand in a gesture that bridged their separate connections to Thomas. That's what Thomas wanted. A family built from the ashes of what his father destroyed. I barely know you, Elena said honestly. Either of you. We have time now, Vincent replied. Something my father almost took from all of us. Adam stirred, blinking sleepily at the adults surrounding him. Are we safe yet? He asked in a small voice that echoed in the private banking room. Vincent's hand hovered tentatively over his son's head before gently smoothing his hair. Yes, he said, emotion cracking his voice. We're finally safe. Through the bank's windows, Elena could see Richard's security teams establishing a perimeter, too late to stop what had already been set in motion. In a few hours, Richard Wayne would discover the full extent of Thomas's contingency plan. The dissolution of his fortune, the federal investigations triggered by evidence packets Rebecca was now releasing to authorities, the implosion of the empire he had built through decades of corruption. For the first time since the will reading, Elena felt the weight lifting. Thomas had left her with far more than $5. He had left her with the truth, with justice within reach, and with a family forged through shared purpose. It's time to go, the agent urged, indicating their secure exit route. As they prepared to leave, Elena folded Thomas's letter carefully and placed it in her pocket beside the $5 bill from the will reading. 2 inheritances from the same man, one designed to humiliate, the other to liberate. She met Sophia's eyes across Adam's wheelchair. Thomas once told me that true wealth isn't what you have, but what you're willing to risk for those you love. Sophia smiled, the first genuine warmth Elena had seen from her. That sounds like him. Together, they moved toward the exit, toward a future Thomas had sacrificed everything to secure. Behind them, on Vincent's tablet, the Wayne financial empire continued its programmed collapse, one transaction at a time. The Italian villa perched on a coastal cliff, its stone walls bathed in Mediterranean sunset. 3 weeks had passed since their escape from Switzerland. 3 weeks of watching Richard Wayne's empire crumble from afar. Assets frozen, federal investigations launched, corporate boards revolting. Elena stood on the terrace, the evening breeze carrying the scent of lemon trees and salt water. Inside, she could hear Adam's laughter as Vincent taught him chess. Sophia was preparing dinner, the domestic normalcy still surreal after everything they'd endured. Rebecca Stark's secure video call that morning had brought encouraging news. Indictments against Richard Wayne were imminent. Howard had recovered from the sedative and made a full statement to federal authorities, his daughter now safely in witness protection. The Wayne family name was becoming synonymous with corruption. Justice was unfolding exactly as Thomas had planned. So why did Elena still feel uneasy? Her phone vibrated with a text from an encrypted number. Security perimeter breached. Protocol Omega initiated. 30 minutes. She rushed inside, finding Vincent already receiving the same alert. Their eyes met in immediate understanding. Ow, Sophia asked, fear sharpening her voice as Vincent showed her the message. It doesn't matter, Vincent replied, already moving toward the villa's secure room. The evacuation protocol is clear. Rebecca's team had established multiple escape routes from the property. A helicopter pad on the east lawn, a hidden tunnel to the beach below, vehicles fueled and ready in the garage. Adam's medication, Sophia said, hurrying toward the boys' room. Elena followed Vincent to the security monitors. The villa's perimeter cameras showed nothing unusual, but the motion sensors at the property's edge were systematically going offline. Professional team, Vincent observed. At least 8 operatives. Your father? Who else? Vincent activated the villa's defense protocols, automatically alerting Rebecca's team, locking down access points, preparing their escape vehicles. We have time if we move now. But something about the approaching threat pattern troubled Elena. It was too precise, too targeted, as if the intruders knew exactly where the security systems were placed. This isn't a standard retrieval team, she realized. They know our protocols. Vincent's face paled. Someone from Rebecca's team has been compromised. A horrible suspicion formed in Elena's mind. Or Rebecca herself. The monitors flickered, then went black. Communications jammed. Vincent confirmed grimly. They gathered in the central hall. Sophia holding Adam close. The boy clutching the chess knight Vincent had given him. The secure tablet displayed their diminishing options as external systems failed one by one. The helicopter is our best chance, Vincent decided. 4 minutes to the pad, 8 minutes for extraction. But Elena's literature professor's mind was analyzing patterns, finding inconsistencies. Why now? Why wait 3 weeks to come after us? Because he needed time to identify our security weaknesses, came a voice from the villa's main entrance. Richard Wayne stood in the doorway, elegant even in tactical gear, flanked by armed men. Beside him, Rebecca Stark, her expression cold, professional, utterly unlike the ally they trusted. "Rebecca," Vincent breathed. "Why?" "Because some of us understand pragmatism," she answered calmly. "Your father's resources may be diminished, but his influence remains considerable." She approached me with a proposition, Richard explained, entering the villa as if touring a property he might purchase. Her expertise for a guarantee of immunity when this plays out. Elena noticed he carried no weapon, always delegating the dirty work. "The financial transfers," Vincent said. "The evidence." "Oh, that's all proceeding," Rebecca confirmed. "Your father will face some consequences, but a negotiated surrender rather than destruction. A comfortable house arrest instead of prison." "And us?" Sophia demanded, shielding Adam with her body. Richard's gaze softened fractionally when it fell on his grandson. "I've come to offer terms. Generous ones, considering the damage you've done." "We're not interested," Vincent said coldly. "Hear me out." Richard moved further into the room, his security team spreading out to control exit points. "Adam will receive the medical care he needs, the best in the world. Sophia will have comfortable accommodations nearby. Vincent, you'll receive a lesser share of what remains of Wayne Enterprises, with certain behavioral stipulations." "And Elena?" Vincent asked, his voice dangerous. Richard barely glanced at her. "Ms. Townsend will receive her original settlement offer, $10 million and a permanent separation from this family." The casual dismissal sparked something in Elena, not anger, but clarity. Richard still didn't understand what Thomas had seen in her, still didn't recognize her as a threat. "You're offering to split us up," she observed, "to dismantle the alliance Thomas created." "I'm offering salvation from the consequences of your actions," Richard corrected. "Federal agents are already moving against Rebecca's network. Without my intervention, you'll all face charges of financial terrorism, conspiracy, corporate sabotage." "Fabricated charges," Vincent snapped. "But effective ones," Rebecca interjected. "Take the offer. It's better than any alternative." Elena studied the room. The armed men at every exit, Richard's confident posture, Rebecca's calculated betrayal. They were trapped, outmaneuvered. Or were they? Richard had always underestimated her. Even now, his attention focused primarily on Vincent, occasionally flickering to Sophia and Adam. Elena was peripheral in his calculation. The foreign widow, the temporary distraction, the $5 beneficiary. She caught Vincent's eye, a subtle nod toward the chess piece in Adam's hand. Vincent's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. He understood. "How do we know we can trust you?" Vincent asked his father, taking a deliberate step forward. "You've betrayed every promise you've ever made." The movement drew the security team's attention, creating a momentary blind spot behind Elena. "Because I'm offering this arrangement in front of federal witnesses," Richard replied, gesturing to Rebecca. "Documented and binding." Elena edged toward the antique writing desk by the terrace doors. Thomas had shown her its secret compartment during a video tour of the villa, another piece of his contingency plan. "What happens to Howard?" Vincent pressed, continuing to hold his father's attention. "To his daughter? They'll be protected, provided Howard maintains his revised statement about corporate irregularities rather than criminal conspiracy." Richard's tone suggested magnanimous compromise. "I'm being more than fair, Vincent." Elena's fingers found the hidden latch beneath the desk's ornate edge. "Adam needs time to consider," Sophia suddenly interjected, drawing Richard's gaze. "He's part of this family, too. His opinion matters." Richard's expression softened further as he looked at his grandson. "Of course, Adam deserves a voice in his future." The moment of grandfatherly pride gave Elena the second she needed. The compartment slid open silently, revealing what Thomas had hidden for this exact scenario. A small device with a single red button. The nuclear option, he'd called it in his contingency instructions. Actually, Elena said clearly, drawing all eyes to her for the first time, I believe I have the final voice in this negotiation. She held up the device. Richard's confident expression faltered. What is that? Rebecca demanded. Vincent smiled grimly. Insurance beyond the financial transfers. Thomas's final contingency. A dead man's switch, Elena explained. Connected to servers worldwide containing everything Thomas collected over 10 years. Not just evidence of financial crimes, but personal correspondence, family secrets, medical records, blackmail material on everyone Richard ever threatened or compromised. Richard's face drained of color. You're bluffing. Thomas predicted you might find a way around the financial penalties, Elena continued. That you might leverage federal connections, negotiate reduced charges. So he created this absolute, irreversible exposure of everything the Wayne family has hidden for generations. You can't prove that device does anything, Rebecca said, though uncertainty had crept into her voice. Elena met Richard's eyes directly. You spent years underestimating Thomas because of his disability. You spent weeks underestimating me because I was just his wife. That's why we'll win. Richard's composure cracked. Vincent talked sense into her. That level of exposure would destroy everything. Not just me, but the family legacy. Your future. Adam's future. Our future isn't the Wayne name, Vincent replied calmly. It's what we build from its ashes. If anyone moves against us, Elena added, if any federal charges mysteriously appear, if Adam's medical care is ever compromised, this information releases. All of it. Richard turned to Rebecca. Tell your team to stand down. Sir, we can still stand down. Richard's voice trembled with barely controlled fury. Now, the security team lowered their weapons reluctantly. You should know, Elena said quietly, that Thomas never wanted to destroy you. Even after everything you did, he hoped you might face justice with dignity. That some fragment of family loyalty might survive. Family loyalty, Richard repeated bitterly. My sons conspired against me for a decade, and you speak of loyalty? They gave you every chance to change course, Elena replied. To choose integrity over power. You chose power every time. Richard's eyes darted between them, calculating even in defeat. What happens now? Now, Vincent said, you leave. Alone. Rebecca goes with you. Your security team disperses, and you never come near my family again. In return, Elena added, this stays contained to the financial crimes already exposed. The deeper material remains sealed. Richard straightened his shoulders, aristocratic composure reasserting itself. And if I refuse? Elena's finger hovered over the button. Then we all burn together. Thomas made his choice when he gathered this evidence. I've made mine by being ready to use it. For a long moment, the room was silent except for Adam's quiet breathing. In the boy's innocent face, Elena could see echoes of both Thomas and Vincent. The Wayne legacy in its purest form. I underestimated him, Richard finally said, his voice hollow. Even dying, Thomas outmaneuvered me. No, Elena corrected gently. Even dying, Thomas gave you a chance at redemption. You're just too blind to see it. Richard's gaze lingered on Adam one last time. Something like genuine regret flickered across his features. Then the mask returned, the calculating patriarch, already plotting his next move. This isn't over, he said quietly. Yes, Sophia replied, speaking directly to him for the first time. It is. Richard turned and walked out, Rebecca and the security team following. The sound of vehicles starting, then fading into the distance, left an eerie silence in the villa. Vincent moved immediately to secure the entrance, while Sophia knelt to comfort Adam. Is the bad man gone? The boy asked, echoing the simple moral clarity of childhood. Yes, Sophia assured him, and he won't be coming back. Elena carefully placed the dead man's switch back in its hidden compartment. Her hands were steady, though her heart raced with the aftermath of confrontation. When Vincent returned, his expression was solemn. They've left the perimeter. Rebecca's team has withdrawn too. He glanced at the security tablet. We'll need to move locations immediately. This safe house is compromised. There's another property prepared in New Zealand, Elena said. Thomas arranged it under a separate protocol, unknown to Rebecca. Vincent's eyebrows raised. He really did think of everything. Not everything, Elena replied softly. He didn't live to see this day, to see justice served. Sophia approached, Adam's hand in hers. But he trusted you to make it happen. She smiled gently. All of us, together. As they prepared for their immediate departure, gathering only essentials, Elena found herself in Thomas's study, the room she'd avoided since arriving at the villa. His presence lingered here in the books he'd selected, the notes in margins, the unfinished chess game on the side table. Vincent found her there, staring at the chessboard. He was playing against himself, Vincent explained. He said it was the only way to truly understand both sides of a conflict. Elena studied the pieces. Who was winning? Neither side, Vincent said with a sad smile. It was heading for a stalemate until the very end. Then he made a surprising move. He pointed to a knight position to protect both the king and queen simultaneously. He said, sometimes victory isn't about conquering your opponent. Sometimes it's about protecting what matters most. Outside, the helicopter Rebecca had sent, now repurposed for their escape, was touching down on the pad. Sophia appeared in the doorway, Adam ready for travel. It's time, she said. As they walked toward the helicopter, the Mediterranean sunset painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Elena felt Thomas's presence more strongly than she had since his death. Not as a ghost, but as a force that had set all of this in motion. The justice, the protection, the unlikely family forged from shared purpose. Richard Wayne would rebuild some portion of his influence. Men like him always did. But the Wayne family legacy had been fundamentally transformed. Not destroyed, but reborn through Vincent and Adam. Through the truth rather than corruption. The helicopter lifted off, banking toward their new beginning. Below, the villa grew smaller. Its terrace where Elena had stood just an hour before now, a tiny white rectangle against the darkening landscape. She reached in her pocket, fingers closing around the $5 bill from the will reading. What had once been a symbol of humiliation now represented something entirely different. The beginning of a journey that had led to this moment of victory. Not the victory Thomas had originally envisioned, perhaps, but something equally powerful. Something built on truth and sacrifice and unexpected alliances. As the Italian coast disappeared behind them, Elena felt Adam's small hand slip into hers. She turned to find the boy studying her with solemn eyes, so like his father's, both his fathers. Uncle Thomas said you would save us, he said simply. In the videos he made me. He said you were the strongest. Elena blinked back tears, squeezing his hand gently. We saved each other, Adam. That's what family does. Ahead lay uncertainty, but also possibility. The Wayne name would be redefined not by Richard's corruption or Thomas's martyrdom, but by what they built together from the ashes of both. Justice had been served, not through destruction, but through transformation. Thomas would have approved. 6 months later, spring arrived in New Zealand with a riot of color across the coastal property Thomas had secured as their final sanctuary. Wildflowers carpeted the hillside, leading down to the private beach, where Adam chased waves under Vincent's watchful eye, his health fully restored after months of proper treatment. Elena sat on the veranda, grading papers from the literature course she now taught online. The university position had come through Rebecca Stark's replacement at Justice, a gesture of atonement for her predecessor's betrayal. Teaching again had restored a piece of Elena's identity separate from the trauma and upheaval of the past year. Sophia emerged from the garden, a basket of fresh herbs and vegetables balanced on her hip. In the months since their escape from Italy, an unexpected friendship had blossomed between the two women who had loved Thomas Wayne. Adam's energy is boundless today, Sophia observed, setting her harvest on the outdoor table. Vincent can barely keep up. Elena smiled, watching man and boy splashing in the shallows. Vincent never thought he'd have this chance to be a father openly. None of us thought we'd have this life, Sophia agreed, sitting beside her. Especially not together. The word together no longer carried the awkwardness it once had. What had begun as an alliance of necessity had evolved into something more complex and genuine. A chosen family bound by shared history and purpose. The morning's news alerts had brought final confirmation of Richard Wayne's plea deal. House arrest, substantial fines, and the dismantling of key Wayne enterprises. Howard Lane had been granted full immunity in exchange for his testimony. His daughter, now safely established in a new life far from Richard's influence. Justice, not vengeance. Exactly as Thomas had wanted. Elena set aside her student papers as Vincent and Adam trudged up from the beach, sand clinging to their feet, matching grins on their faces. "Mom, Elena, I found a starfish." Adam held up his prize, eyes bright with excitement. At 8 years old, he'd blossomed in their new home, the shadows of illness receding from his memory. "It's beautiful," Elena told him solemnly, examining the orange creature. "We should put it in water until we can return it to the sea." Adam nodded seriously. Dad said the same thing. That we have to protect it. The word dad no longer sounded new on his lips. Vincent had eased into fatherhood with a gentle determination that reminded Elena powerfully of Thomas. The same thoughtfulness, the same capacity for love, though expressed in different ways. Later that evening, after Adam had gone to bed, the adults gathered in the library, a room deliberately designed to echo Thomas's study from the Italian villa. His books lined the shelves, his chess set occupied the corner table, permanently set up with that final, protective night move Vincent had shown Elena months ago. "I received a message from the foundation today," Vincent said, pouring wine for the three of them. "The first water filtration systems are being installed next month. Dambridge's original technology, finally deployed as James Barrett intended. The Barrett Wayne Foundation had become their public face, the constructive legacy emerging from the ashes of Richard's corruption. Clean water technology deployed to communities worldwide, funded by the recovered Wayne assets Thomas had redirected before his death. James would be proud, Sophia said softly. Thomas, too. Vincent raised his glass. To absent family. They drank to the toast, the silence that followed comfortable rather than painful, the grief now tempered by purpose and time. "I found something today," Elena said after a moment. While organizing Thomas's research archives, she placed a small velvet box on the table. Inside lay a woman's ring, not her wedding band, but something older, vintage. It belonged to Thomas and Vincent's mother, she explained, with a note saying it should go to Sophia when the time was right. Sophia's eyes filled with tears as she lifted the ring. "He kept this all these years." "Thomas always believed we would find each other," Vincent said. "That eventually his family would be united." "Not just his family," Elena corrected gently. "Ours. All of us." The distinction mattered. In the months since their escape from Richard's final attempt to control them, they had created something new, a family structure unconventional by any standard, but genuine in its connections. Vincent refilled their glasses. "There's something else we should discuss. The executor at Wayne Enterprises contacted me today. The board is stabilizing after Richard's removal. They've offered me a position, not leadership, but oversight of the environmental division." "In New York?" Sophia asked, concern evident in her voice. "Remote, primarily. Some travel eventually, when it's safe." Vincent's expression was thoughtful. "It's a chance to reshape my father's legacy from within, to build something positive from what remains." "What do you want to do?" Elena asked. Vincent considered the question carefully. 6 months ago, I would have rejected any connection to the Wayne name. But now, he glanced toward Adam's bedroom. "Now, I think about the legacy we're creating for him. Not just wealth or power, but purpose." "Thomas would approve," Sophia said quietly. "Yes," Elena agreed. "He always saw Wayne Enterprises as salvageable, even when he was gathering evidence against its corruption." Outside, the southern stars emerged in a clear sky, The Milky Way a brilliant sweep above their secluded promontory. Their protection detail, still maintained as a precaution, patrolled the perimeter discreetly, a reminder that vigilance remained necessary. Richard Wayne had honored the terms of their standoff, but trust would never be possible. The dead man's switch remained active, its contents still sealed but ready if needed. Sophia excused herself to check on Adam, leaving Elena and Vincent alone in the library. "I never thanked you properly," Vincent said after a moment, "for what you did that day in Italy, standing up to my father when all seemed lost." Elena shook her head. "Thomas gave me the tools. You and Sophia gave me the reason." Still, Vincent studied her with eyes so like his brother's. "Most people would have taken the $10 million and walked away." "I'm not most people," Elena replied with a small smile. "As your father discovered too late." Vincent laughed softly. "Yes, the $5 widow who brought down an empire." The phrase no longer held the sting it once had. The will reading that had seemed so devastating had merely been the first move in a game Thomas had been playing all along. A game whose victory condition wasn't wealth or revenge, but the safety and unity of those he loved. The next morning dawned clear and perfect. Elena rose early, drawn to the small memorial garden they had planted on the eastern slope of the property. A simple stone bench faced the sunrise, Thomas's favorite chess piece, the knight, carved into its back. She sat with her morning coffee, watching light spill across the Pacific. From here, she could see their whole domain, the main house where Adam was likely still sleeping, the guest cottage where Howard would stay during his upcoming visit, the helicopter pad for Rebecca's replacement when quarterly security reviews were conducted. A sanctuary built from truth rather than deception, protection rather than power. Footsteps on a gravel path announced Sophia's approach. She sat beside Elena, offering a companionable silence as they watched the day brighten. "Adam asked me something difficult yesterday," Sophia finally said. "About Thomas. What did he want to know? If Thomas was his real father." Sophia's voice held no judgment, just thoughtful consideration. "I told him that Thomas chose to be his father, which is sometimes more important than biology." Elena nodded slowly. "What did he say to that?" "He said he was lucky to have had two fathers who chose him, and now he has three people who choose to be his family every day." Sophia's smile was gentle. "He includes you in that count, you know." The simple acceptance in a child's calculation brought unexpected tears to Elena's eyes. "I never expected any of this. When I met Thomas, I was just a literature professor who spilled coffee on her manuscript. And I was just a pharmaceutical researcher working with my father," Sophia replied. "Life takes unexpected turns." From a main house came the sound of Adam's laughter as Vincent called him for breakfast. The normal, domestic moment contrasted powerfully with the extraordinary circumstances that had brought them together. "I've been thinking about Thomas's final message," Elena said, "about family being what we choose, not what we inherit. And I think I finally understand what he meant." Elena turned to face Sophia directly. He wasn't just talking about rejecting Richard's corruption. He was talking about this, the family we're building now. Chosen daily, deliberately. Later that morning, they gathered on the beach for Adam's special request, a memorial ceremony for Thomas, marking 1 year since his death. The boy had arranged shells in a spiral pattern on the sand, placing Thomas's favorite books at the center. "I want to tell Uncle Thomas about our new home," he explained with the straightforward wisdom of children, "and thank him for keeping us safe." One by one, they added something to the spiral. Vincent placed a chess piece, Sophia a pressed flower from Thomas's favorite greenhouse plant, Elena the $5 bill she had carried since the will reading. Adam looked up quizzically at the money. "What's that for?" "A reminder," Elena explained, "that sometimes what looks like the end is really a beginning." The ocean breeze caught the bill, threatening to carry it away until Adam captured it and solemnly returned it to the spiral. "We should secure it," he decided, placing a smooth stone on top. The simple act carried a metaphorical weight that brought smiles to the adults. Security, stability, permanence, the very things Thomas had sacrificed everything to provide. As the tide began its approach toward their memorial, Vincent suggested They take a photograph to preserve the moment. They gathered around the spiral, Adam in the center, the adults forming a protective circle. Not a traditional family portrait, but an accurate one. "Do you think he knows?" Adam asked as they walked back toward the house, the tide gradually reclaiming their memorial. "That we're okay now? I think he made sure of it," Elena answered, her hand finding Sophia's in an unconscious gesture of solidarity. In the years since Thomas Wayne's death, justice had been served, though not in the way anyone had expected. Richard Wayne had lost his empire, but retained his freedom, a compromise that had initially felt unsatisfying until Elena recognized the deeper victory. The true Wayne legacy would continue not through Richard's corruption or even Thomas's sacrifice, but through Vincent's integrity, Adam's innocence, and the foundation that bore the Barrett Wayne name. Through the family they had formed from tragedy, unorthodox, unexpected, but unquestionably real. That evening, as Adam insisted on a chess lesson from Vincent and Sophia prepared dinner, Elena found herself back on the veranda, watching the stars emerge over the ocean. A profound sense of peace settled over her, not the absence of grief, but its transformation into something constructive. She had loved Thomas Wayne with her whole heart. She had fought for his final mission with every resource she possessed. And now she lived with his legacy every day, not just in memories, but in the family he had brought together. From widow to warrior to guardian. From $5 to a future rich with purpose. Thomas had been right about her strength, just as he'd been right about Vincent's integrity and Sophia's resilience. He had seen the truth in all of them and built his final plan accordingly. As the southern stars formed their unfamiliar patterns above her new home, Elena Townsend smiled. At peace with the past, present in the moment, and for the first time in a year, genuinely hopeful about the future. Not an ending, but a beginning, just as Thomas had planned all along. If this story touched your heart, please join our Ducal family by subscribing and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to share with others.